5 months after my wife died from cancer, I decided to sell her car. But when I opened the glove box, I found something that shattered everything I believed about our marriage. What I discovered would destroy my family forever. My name is Darren Stone. I'm 42 years old, and 5 months ago, I buried my wife of 15 years. Cancer took Marlene away from me and our 2 kids, Justin and Kayla. But that wasn't the end of my story. That was just the beginning of discovering who she really was when I wasn't looking. The day everything changed started like any other Tuesday morning. I was getting ready for work at Henderson Ford, where I'd been managing sales for 8 years. Good job, steady pay, respected in the community. Marlene used to joke that I could sell ice to an Eskimo. Justin was grabbing cereal before heading to Roosevelt High for his senior year, while 14-year-old Kayla was still getting ready upstairs. At least some things stayed normal after we lost Marlene. "Dad, I need money for the homecoming dance," Justin said, scrolling through his phone. $50 for the ticket, plus dinner money. I pour my coffee and study my son. He looked more like Marlene every day. Same dark eyes, same stubborn chin. "We'll talk tonight. Put the phone down when you're eating." He rolled his eyes but complied. Good kid despite the attitude. Both kids had been handling their mother's death better than expected, though I knew they were hurting. At work, Lance Freeman was waiting in the parking lot. He owned Freeman Auto Services, a chain of repair shops with dealership contracts. We'd been doing business for years, and he'd become a friend. When Marlene got sick, Lance offered help without being asked. "Morning, Darren," he said, approaching with that easy smile. "How you holding up?" "One day at a time," I replied, my standard answer for months. "What brings you by early?" Lance shifted uncomfortably. "Actually, I want to talk about something. Got a minute?" We walked into the showroom, past gleaming F-150s and Mustangs. I unlocked my office and gestured for him to sit. "What's on your mind?" Lance cleared his throat. "This is awkward, but I thought you should know. There's been talk around town. People saying things about Marlene." My coffee cup stopped halfway to my lips. "What kind of talk?" "Nothing specific, just rumors. You know how people get." Lance looked genuinely troubled. "I figured you'd want to know so you could shut it down." "Rumors about what?" "Exactly. People claiming she was seen places she shouldn't have been. With people she shouldn't have been with." Lance met my eyes. "Look, I didn't believe it. Marlene was solid. But you deserved a heads up." The words hit like a punch to the gut, but I kept my expression neutral. "Who's spreading this garbage?" "Nobody wants to say where they heard it. Could be complete nonsense." Lance stood. "Sorry to dump this on you, man. But if it were me, I'd want to know." After he left, I sat staring at the framed photo of Marlene and the kids from last Christmas. She looked happy, healthy, before cancer changed everything. People talking about her, spreading lies about a woman who couldn't defend herself, made my blood boil. But deep down, a tiny voice whispered that maybe I should listen to what people were saying. That night at dinner, I couldn't shake Lance's words. The kids were talking about their day, Justin complaining about his history teacher, Kayla excited about tryouts for the school play. Normal teenage stuff that usually made me smile. But all I could think about were those rumors. "Dad, you're not listening," Kayla said, waving her fork at me. I said I got the lead role in the fall production. "That's great, sweetheart," I replied, trying to focus. "What play is it again?" "Romeo and Juliet." "I'm playing Juliet." She beamed with pride. Mom would have been so excited. She always said I had her dramatic flair. The mention of Marlene hit me harder than usual. She would have been proud. I managed. After dinner, while the kids did homework, I found myself standing in the garage, staring at Marlene's Honda Accord. It had been sitting there untouched for 5 months, gathering dust like some kind of shrine. Her coffee cup was still in the center console, her favorite CD halfway ejected from the player. I'd been avoiding this car, avoiding the memories it held. But Lance's words echoed in my head. Where exactly had people seen Marlene? Who was she supposedly with? My phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. "We need to talk about Marlene. Meet me at Denny's on Route 9 tomorrow at 7 p.m. Come alone." I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. Someone knew something about my wife, something they couldn't say over the phone or in public. Part of me wanted to delete the message and pretend it never happened. The other part needed answers. I showed the text to Lance the next day when he stopped by the dealership. "Could be a prank," he said, but his expression was serious. "Or it could be someone with real information." "What would you do?" I asked. Lance was quiet for a long moment. I'd go. But I'd be careful. Take someone with you. Or at least tell someone where you're going. That evening, I drove to Denny's with my stomach in knots. The restaurant was nearly empty. Just a few truckers and a waitress who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. I picked a booth near the back and ordered coffee I didn't want. At exactly 7, a woman walked in. Mid-30s, blonde hair, nervous energy. She scanned the restaurant until her eyes found mine, then walked over like she was approaching a firing squad. "You're Darren Stone," she said, sliding into the booth across from me. "That's me. And you are?" "Sarah Mitchell. I work at the clinic where your wife got her treatments." She wrapped her hands around the coffee cup the waitress brought her. I knew Marlene pretty well those last few months. "Okay," I said carefully. "What did you want to tell me?" Sarah took a shaky breath. "Your wife wasn't just getting chemo at her clinic. She was meeting someone there. A man who wasn't you." The words hit me like ice water. "What are you talking about? I shouldn't be telling you this. I could lose my job." Sarah's voice was barely audible. "But I can't sleep at night knowing what I know and not saying anything." "What exactly do you know?" "I know that while you were at work, thinking she was getting treatment, she was spending hours in the parking lot with someone else. Someone who brought her flowers and held her hand and kissed her goodbye." I felt the blood drain from my face. "Ooh." Sarah reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I wrote down his license plate number. I thought someday someone might need to know. I stared at the piece of paper Sarah had given me. 7 digits and 3 letters that could change everything I thought I knew about my wife. "How long was this going on?" I asked, my voice rougher than I intended. Sarah wrapped her hands tighter around her coffee cup. "I first noticed it about 6 months before she died. Maybe longer, I don't know. I wasn't exactly keeping track at first." "Describe him." "Tall, maybe 6'2". Brown hair going gray at the temples. Expensive clothes, drives a black BMW. She paused, studying my face. "He seemed to care about her, if that matters." The way he looked at her, held her hand. It wasn't just physical. That somehow made it worse. I could have understood a meaningless affair, something born out of fear and desperation while facing death. But this sounded like love. "Why didn't you say something sooner?" I asked. "Say what?" "Tell a grieving husband that his dead wife was cheating." Sarah shook her head. "But then I started hearing the rumors around town, and I realized other people knew. I figured you deserved the truth from someone who actually saw it." I folded the paper and put it in my wallet. "Thank you for telling me. What are you going to do?" "I'm going to find out who this guy is." The next morning, I called my buddy Mike at the DMV. We'd gone to high school together, and he owed me a favor from when I'd helped him get a good deal on a truck. "I need you to run a plate for me," I said. "Personal matter." "Darren, you know I can't just." "Mike, my wife died 5 months ago. I found out she was seeing someone else. I need to know who." There was a long pause. "Give me the number." 20 minutes later, my phone rang. "The BMW is registered to Lance Freeman," Mike said. "Lives at 1247 Oak Street." The phone slipped from my hand. Lance Freeman. My business partner. My friend. The man who'd warned me about rumors, who'd offered help during Marlene's illness, who'd stood at her graveside and shook my hand. I sat in my truck outside Lance's house for an hour, watching him through his kitchen window. He was making coffee, reading the paper, acting like he hadn't destroyed my life. The rage building in my chest felt dangerous, like it might consume everything in its path. When he came outside to get his newspaper, I got out of my truck. "Morning, Lance," I said, walking up his driveway. He looked up, and I saw it immediately, the guilt written across his face like a neon sign. "Darren, what are you doing here?" "I think you know." Lance straightened up slowly, still holding the newspaper. "We should probably talk inside. We should probably talk right here." I stopped 3 feet away from him. "How long, Lance? How long were you sleeping with my wife?" Lance dropped the newspaper. His face went pale, but he didn't try to deny it. 8 months, he said quietly. "It started 8 months before she died." The honesty hit harder than a lie would have. While she was fighting cancer. While I was cutting back work to take care of her. "Darren, you have to understand." "Understand what?" My voice was rising, and I didn't care if his neighbors heard. "Understand that my business partner was screwing my dying wife." "It wasn't like that." Lance took a step back. "She was scared, lonely. You were so focused on being strong for everyone that she felt like she couldn't talk to you about what she was really going through. So she talked to you instead." At first, yes. Just talked. I'd see her at the clinic during my lunch breaks, and she looked so lost. One thing led to another. I wanted to hit him. Every muscle in my body was coiled for violence. But I'd never been the type to solve problems with my fists, and I wasn't starting now. You came to my house, I said instead. You ate dinner at my table. You played catch with my son in the backyard. I know how it looks. You know how it looks? I stepped closer. You destroyed my family. You made me question everything about my marriage, my life, my wife's last months on earth. And you know how it looks. Lance had the decency to look ashamed. She loved you, Darren. She never stopped loving you. She had a funny way of showing it. The cancer changed her, made her desperate for something that felt alive, something that wasn't about hospitals and treatments and dying. Lance's voice was barely audible. I should have been stronger. Should have walked away. But you didn't. No, I didn't. I stood there looking at this man I trusted, this man who'd betrayed me in the worst possible way. Part of me wanted to destroy him the way he'd destroyed me, but another part just felt tired. I want you to stay away from my family, I said finally. No more business deals, no more friendly visits. If you see me coming, cross the street. Darren, wait. And Lance. I turned back to face him. If I find out you've told anyone else about this conversation, if my kids hear about their mother's affair from someone other than me, I'll make your life very difficult. We understand each other. He nodded. I walked back to my truck, my hands shaking with suppressed anger. But I'd handled it like a man. No violence. No screaming match for the neighbors to gossip about. Just the cold, hard truth delivered with the kind of controlled fury that Lance would remember for a long time. Now I had to figure out how to tell Justin and Kayla that their mother wasn't the saint they remembered. The hardest conversation of my life happened on a Thursday night after dinner. I'd been rehearsing what to say for 3 days, but when Justin and Kayla were both sitting at the kitchen table looking at me expectantly, every prepared word vanished. Kids, we need to talk about your mother. I began, my voice steadier than I felt. Is this about the rumors? Justin asked. At 17, he was old enough to pick up on the tension that had been building in our house. Some kids at school have been saying things. My heart sank. What kind of things? That mom was seeing someone else before she died. Justin's voice was defensive. I told them they were idiots. That mom would never do that. Kayla looked confused. What are you guys talking about? I took a deep breath. These were my children, and they deserved the truth, even if it would hurt them. Your mother was having a relationship with someone else during her illness. I said as gently as possible. I found out a few days ago. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Kayla's face went through several emotions: confusion, disbelief, then anger. That's not true, she said flatly. Mom loved you. She loved us. She did love us, sweetheart. But sometimes people make mistakes when they're scared and sick. Who was it? Justin asked. His voice had gone cold, mature beyond his years. I hesitated. Lance was their Uncle Lance, the man who'd taught Justin how to change a tire and taken Kayla to father-daughter dances when I was working late. It was Lance Freeman. Kayla shot up from her chair. No, you're lying. Uncle Lance would never. Kayla, sit down. I won't listen to this. She was crying now, angry tears streaming down her face. Mom's dead and you're trying to ruin her memory. She ran upstairs, her door slamming hard enough to shake the house. Justin remained at the table, staring at his hands. How long did you know? He asked quietly. I just found out this week. How long was it going on? About 8 months. Justin nodded slowly, processing the information like the young man he was becoming. That's why you've been so angry lately. I thought you were just missing her more. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. I'm sorry about all of it. Does Lance know that you know? We talked about it. Justin looked up at me, and I saw something hard in his eyes that hadn't been there before. What did you say to him? I told him to stay away from our family. Good. Justin stood up from the table. I'm going to check on Kayla. After they went upstairs, I sat alone in my kitchen, listening to my daughter's muffled sobs through the ceiling. I thought the worst part of Marlene's betrayal was discovering it, but breaking my children's hearts with the truth was infinitely worse. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Your kids deserve better than lies. There's more you need to know about Marlene and Lance. Meet me at the park on Elm Street tomorrow at noon. I stared at the message. More secrets, more pain waiting to be uncovered. But my children deserve the whole truth, no matter how much it hurt. The park on Elm Street was nearly empty when I arrived the next day. Just an older woman pushing a stroller and a jogger who looked like he was training for a marathon. I sat on a bench near the playground and waited. At exactly noon, a woman approached. Mid-40s, professional clothes, carrying a leather briefcase. She looked familiar, but I couldn't place her. "Mr. Stone? I'm Rebecca Foster. I was Marlene's oncologist." That's where I'd seen her, at the cancer center, during Marlene's treatments. Dr. Foster had been kind but direct, never sugarcoating the prognosis, but never crushing our hope completely. "Dr. Foster, what did you want to tell me?" She sat down beside me on the bench. "This is highly irregular. Patient confidentiality normally extends beyond death. But there are circumstances." "What circumstances?" "Your wife kept a journal during her treatment. She asked me to hold on to it, said she didn't want it found at home." Dr. Foster opened her briefcase and pulled out a small leather notebook. "She made me promise to give it to you if anything happened to her." I took the journal with trembling hands. It was worn, filled with Marlene's careful handwriting. "She wanted you to understand," Dr. Foster continued. "The affair, the secrecy, it wasn't simple betrayal. There were complications you need to know about." I opened to a random page and read, "The treatments aren't working. Dr. Foster thinks I have maybe 6 months. I can't tell Darren. He's trying so hard to stay positive. But Lance knows. He sees me for who I really am now, not the woman Darren needs me to be." "She was protecting you," Dr. Foster said softly. "From the truth about her prognosis, from seeing her fall apart. Lance became her outlet for the fear and despair she couldn't share with you." I flipped to another entry. "Darren brought me flowers today. Yellow roses, my favorites. He looks so hopeful, talking about plans for after I beat this. I don't have the heart to tell him the cancer has spread to my liver. Some truths are too cruel. You're saying she lied to me about how sick she was?" "She lied to everyone except Lance. He was the only person who knew she had weeks, not months." Dr. Foster's voice was gentle but firm. "I'm not excusing the affair, Mr. Stone, but your wife was drowning, and Lance was the only person she felt she could be honest with about dying." I closed the journal, unable to read more. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because your children will grow up thinking their mother was unfaithful. They should know she was also human, scared, and trying to spare the people she loved from watching her fall apart." I looked at this woman who had watched my wife die, who had kept her secrets even after death. "There's one more thing," Dr. Foster said. "Marlene asked me to tell you something, if you ever found out about Lance." "What?" "She said to tell you that loving you was the best decision she ever made, and leaving you was the worst. The affair wasn't about not loving you enough. It was about loving you too much to let you see her completely break." I sat in that park for an hour after Dr. Foster left, reading Marlene's journal. Page after page of fear, pain, and desperate love for a family she knew she was leaving behind. The woman who emerged from these pages wasn't the faithless wife I'd been imagining. She was someone much more complicated, a dying woman who had made terrible choices while trying to protect the people she loved most. It didn't excuse what she'd done, but for the first time since finding out about Lance, I felt like I understood why she'd done it. 2 weeks after reading Marlene's journal, I finally worked up the courage to tackle what I'd been avoiding, cleaning out her car. I decided to sell my wife's car 5 months after she passed. But when I opened the glove box to clear out her personal items, I found something that changed everything again. Hidden beneath the owner's manual and registration papers was a small digital recorder, the kind lawyers use for dictating notes. I'd never seen it before, but it was clearly Marlene's. Her initials were engraved on the side. I sat in the driver's seat and pressed play. Marlene's voice filled the car, weak but determined. "If Darren is listening to this, then Dr. Foster kept her promise and gave him my journal. There's more he needs to know." My hands shook as I held the device. "I made Lance promise to take care of you and the kids after I'm gone. Not financially. God knows he owes us that much. But to be there if you need someone who understands what we went through." I paused the recording. Lance taking care of us. The man I'd banished from our lives. The cancer spread faster than I told anyone. By the time you're hearing this, I've probably been gone for months. Lance knows about my real timeline. He knows I have days, not weeks. The recording continued with details that made my chest tight. Marlene describing her final conversations with Lance, her fears about leaving Justin and Kayla, her regret about the deception. I need you to know something else about Lance, her voice continued. He never wanted the affair to continue. After the first month, he tried to end it 3 times. Said it wasn't fair to you, wasn't fair to anyone. But I was selfish. I threatened to tell his wife about us if he walked away. My blood went cold. Marlene had blackmailed Lance into continuing the relationship. I know how that sounds. I know what it makes me. But I was dying, Darren, and he was the only person I could be completely honest with about being terrified. The recording went on for another 10 minutes. Marlene detailing how she'd manipulated Lance, how she'd used his guilt and compassion to keep him involved even when he wanted out. When it ended, I sat in silence for a long time. The woman I'd been hating for her betrayal had betrayed her lover too. She'd hurt everyone who cared about her, including the man she'd supposedly chosen over me. I found myself driving to Lance's house again, but this time with a different purpose. He was in his garage, working on his motorcycle, when I pulled into the driveway. Darren, he said, straightening up. I thought we agreed. I found Marlene's recorder. I interrupted. Lance's face went pale. He set down his wrench and wiped his hands on a rag. You listened to it. All of it. We stood there in his garage. 2 men who'd both been manipulated by the same dying woman. She blackmailed you, I said. Lance nodded. Threatened to tell my wife, destroy my business relationships. Said she'd make sure everyone knew I'd abandoned a cancer patient when she needed me most. Why didn't you tell me that when I confronted you? Because I still made the choice to start it. Still betrayed your trust. Lance sat down heavily on his workbench. I deserved whatever you want to do to me. I studied this man I called friend, then enemy, now something else entirely. She played us both. Yeah, Lance said quietly. She did. The kids ask about you sometimes. Wonder why Uncle Lance doesn't come around anymore. Lance looked up at me. What do you want me to say to that? I want you to help me figure out how to tell them the truth without destroying their memory of their mother completely. Lance and I spent 3 hours in his garage that day, talking through everything that had happened between him and Marlene. It wasn't easy, hearing the details of their relationship, understanding how she manipulated him into staying involved. But something strange happened during that conversation. For the first time since discovering the affair, I felt like I wasn't carrying the weight of betrayal alone. She recorded messages for the kids too, Lance said eventually. Asked me to give them to Justin and Kayla when they turned 18. Said they'd understand better when they were adults. What kind of messages? Explanations. Apologies. Things she couldn't say while she was alive because she was trying to protect them. I thought about my children, still struggling with the revelation about their mother's affair. Justin had been distant, but protective, stepping up to help with Kayla. Kayla herself had been angry one day, heartbroken the next. Maybe we should listen to them together, I suggested. Figure out the right way to handle this. Lance looked surprised. You want me involved with your family again? I want my kids to have all the information they need to understand their mother. And like it or not, you were part of her story. That evening, Lance came to the house for the first time since Marlene's funeral. Justin answered the door, his face going hard when he saw who it was. Dad, what's he doing here? We need to talk, all of us. Family meeting in the living room. Kayla came downstairs reluctantly. She'd barely spoken to me since learning about the affair, and seeing Lance in our house clearly confused her. I know this is awkward, I began, but I found some things that change what we know about your mother's relationship with Lance. I played parts of Marlene's recording, the sections where she admitted to blackmailing Lance, where she explained her fears and motivations. I watched my children's faces change as they heard their mother's voice, describing her manipulation of everyone around her. She wasn't just sick in her body, I explained when the recording ended. She was sick with fear, with desperation. It made her do things that weren't like the woman we knew. Justin looked at Lance with something that might have been understanding. You try to end it? Lance nodded. 3 times. Your mother was very persuasive about why I shouldn't. She threatened you, Kayla said quietly. It wasn't a question. She did. But I still made the choice to start the relationship. That's on me, not her. We talked for another hour. Lance answering questions, me filling in gaps from Marlene's journal and recordings. It wasn't forgiveness. We weren't ready for that. But it was understanding. When Lance got up to leave, Justin surprised everyone. Uncle Lance, he said, maybe you could come to dinner this weekend. Not like old times, but different. Lance looked at me. I nodded. I'd like that, Justin. Thank you. After he left, Kayla curled up next to me on the couch. I'm still mad at Mom, she said. That's okay. I am too sometimes. But I'm not mad at you anymore. Or Uncle Lance. Good. We're going to figure this out together. All of us. I looked at my daughter, this brave young woman who was trying to make sense of an impossible situation. All of us. I confirmed. 6 months after finding Marlene's journal, Lance brought over the recordings she'd made for the kids. We'd agreed to listen to them together first, to make sure they were appropriate for Justin and Kayla to hear. She made these about a week before she died. Lance explained as we sat in my living room. Asked me to wait until they were both 18, but given everything that's happened, they deserve to hear their mother's voice, I said. They deserve her explanation. The first recording was for Justin. Marlene's voice was weak, but clear. My dear Justin, if you're hearing this, then you know about Lance and me. I can't undo what I did, but I can explain why I did it. You're going to be the man of the house now, and you need to understand that sometimes good people make terrible choices when they're afraid. She talked about her fears for his future, her pride in the young man he was becoming, her regret that she wouldn't see him graduate or get married or have children of his own. Don't let my mistakes make you cynical about love, she said. Your father is the best man I've ever known. I failed him, but love itself didn't fail us. Kayla's recording was different, softer, more maternal. Sweet Kayla, you're going to be angry with me for a long time. That's okay. I'm angry with me too. But I need you to know that every choice I made, even the wrong ones, came from love. Love for you, for Justin, for your father. Marlene spoke about her hopes for Kayla's future, about being strong and independent, about not letting her mother's failures define her own relationships. Trust your father, she concluded. He'll make mistakes, we all do, but he'll never stop loving you. And if you can find it in your heart, trust Lance too. He's a good man who got caught up in a dying woman's desperation. When the recordings ended, Lance and I sat in silence for several minutes. She really loved you all, he said finally. I know. That's what made it so hard to understand. That evening, I played the recordings for Justin and Kayla. They listened without interruption, tears streaming down both their faces. She sounds so sad, Kayla whispered. She was sad, sweetheart, and scared, and sick. Justin wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. I forgive her, he said simply. I don't understand what she did, but I forgive her. Kayla nodded. Me too. And what about Lance? They looked at each other, having one of those silent conversations that siblings have. He can come to Christmas dinner, Kayla said. But he's bringing dessert. And it better be good. I laughed for the first time in months. Really laughed from deep in my chest. I'll let him know about the dessert requirement. Dad, Justin said, are we going to be okay? I looked at my children, these remarkable young people who'd shown more grace and wisdom than most adults twice their age. Yes, son, we're going to be just fine. 2 years later, I stood in the Henderson Ford showroom watching Justin receive his Salesman of the Month award. At 19, he'd taken to the car business like he was born for it, and customers trusted him the same way they'd always trusted me. Kayla was performing in the spring musical at the community college, majoring in theater and loving every minute of it. Her scholarship covered most of the tuition, and what it didn't cover, we managed together. Lance had become a regular part of our lives again, but it was different now. Not the easy friendship we'd had before, but something more honest. He'd started dating someone new, a widow named Patricia who knew our whole story and didn't judge any of us for it. She's good for him, I told Patricia one evening when they came for dinner. Marlene would have approved. You really think so? I think Marlene would want all of us to find happiness again. Even Lance. I'd started dating too. A woman named Carol who worked at the bank and had never known Marlene. It was nice to have someone in my life who saw me as I was now, not as half of the couple I used to be. The dealership was doing well. I'd been promoted to general manager after the previous manager retired, and the steady income felt good after all the uncertainty. But the real victory was smaller, more personal. It was Justin and Kayla calling Lance Uncle Lance again without hesitation. It was family dinners that included laughter instead of just polite conversation. It was waking up in the morning and looking forward to the day instead of just surviving it. One evening, as I was locking up the dealership, I found myself thinking about Marlene. Not with the anger that had consumed me for so long, but with something closer to peace. She'd hurt us all, me, Lance, the kids. Her fear had made her selfish, desperate. manipulative. But she'd also loved us, in her complicated, flawed, human way. I pulled out my phone and called home. "Hey, Dad," Kayla answered. "How was work?" "Good, sweetheart. Really good. I'll be home in 20 minutes. Uncle Lance is here. We're making tacos. Save me some." And Kayla, "Yeah, I love you. Love you too, Dad." As I drove home through the familiar streets of my town, I realized something important. Marlene's betrayal hadn't destroyed our family. It had changed us, tested us, forced us to rebuild from the ground up. But we were still here, still loving each other, still moving forward. And that was enough.